All right, welcome on holding by Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, want to welcome on holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17, and we are in verse 11. Again, that's where we're holding. Again, want to welcome on holding by Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. We are in verse 11. Torah says, "Kinevsh b'asar b'dam." Ki v'ani nasativ lachem al mizbeach l'chaper nashosechem ki adam hu b'nefesh yechaper. Torah says that for the life of the flesh and the blood, right, I've given it to you upon the altar to make a atonement for your soul, because the blood with the life that makes atonement. Now we said before. Right, we said before that everything's dependent on blood, right? That every creature on an animal is brought, Rashi says, and sacrifice is dependent on its blood, right? And for this, I place on the altar. I place on the altar to make atonement. So we brought down from the Ramban that the Ramban brought down, and he explains that basically you're supposed to stay away from blood, right? That's what he said, which basically stay away from blood. Blood is only used for atonement. Brought down the Rambam, the more Nevuchim, the guy for the perplexed, right? The Rambam said the reason for blood over here is because it was disgusting in the eyes of the Castines, and they used blood, and they ate blood for what purpose? To have a connection to demons, find out the future, and the Ramban. The Ramban said, based on that, very nice. Very nice explanation. The only problem is, where do you see that in the verses? Right? Where in the world you see that? Where do you see it in the verses? So he wanted to say, so the Ramban over here disagrees, right? Over here, sorry, he disagrees, and the Ramban says that the verse again. What's the point? It brings on the verses to say that the soul is in the blood, right? Or the blood, right? The soul is in the blood, right? It says that in verse 14, which we're going to see one day. I'm not going to get there today, probably next week either, but we'll get there. Also, you see in verse 11, right? The flesh of the blood is in the blood, right? Sorry, the flesh of the soul is in the blood, right? And we see in Deuteronomy chapter 12 verse 23, right? Same thing. Person eats blood, right? The soul is in the blood, so you're not allowed to eat blood, right? So we're not allowed to eat blood, etc. Again, applies to Jews, doesn't necessarily apply to non-Jews, right? Which we spoke about. So he says, in the Rambam, in the guide for the perplexed, very good, right? Very interesting, very nice explanation. The problem is, we're looking at the verse itself. That's not what the Torah tells me, right? That's certainly not a simple explanation in the Torah. Then the Ramban went on. The Ramban went on and said, "We are what we eat." Right? That's we're the only ones to recognize our Creator. Because we recognize our Creator, we can do whatever we want with animals, as long as we don't abuse them, right? And even though the vegans will say, that when before the Torah was given, we are vegetarian, so it's better to be a vegetarian, right? We spoke about that, and then we had another aspect of the Ramban we spoke about last week that animals are programmed, right? Animals are certainly programmed. They can't go outside their own DNA, right? They're giving understanding to flee, to run away from damage, right? They're given the ability to go after their own desires, right? Doesn't mean they have free will. It's just that's their instinct, right? So to speak. So we spoke about that. Now the Ramban continues. We'll see how far we get here. The Ramban says further that a person who eats, right, if you're eating an animal, right, if you're going to eat an animal, person eats an animal, he says that it goes into what you're eating, obviously you're ingesting, right? It goes in the body. And whatever you eat is transformed into the body. Right? So it has an effect on the body. Definitely has an effect what you eat. Right? He says, literally, it says it's like it becomes one flesh. In other words, you're eating this animal, whatever it is, you ingest it, it has an effect. It comes into your body like one. Right? It's like you and this animal are like one. So then the Ramban says, if a person eats the flesh, eats the soul, right? Eats the soul of the animal, and where's the soul coming from? Through the bloods, right? That's what we've said before. The soul is through the bloods. So if the soul is through the blood, he says that it goes into the system of the person. Now, we spoke about Kashrus way back when. Animals that Jews are allowed to eat, not allowed to eat. So there's an opinion, and this would bear this out also, right? There's an opinion that, first of all, you're going to have a negative effect what you eat if it's not kosher. For a Jew, it's going to have a negative effect, right? It doesn't affect a non-Jew. Because Kuyaka over there, Leviticus Chapter 10, says that, you see, non-Jews eat all kinds of things, right? All kinds of creepy crawly things and whatever. It doesn't affect them, has no effect on them. So since it doesn't have an effect on them, maybe except for the bats and Wuhan, right? We're not going to go there. But even if that's the case, their Kli Yakar says it's not going to affect them. If it's not going to affect them, why would they keep kosher? Right? I hear people say all the time, I don't want to eat clean animals, blah, blah, blah. Right? What the Torah says you're permitted to do doesn't affect a non-Jew the way it does a Jew. Right? It says the Gemara in Yuma, the Gemara says, playing the words of the tamtem, which means to make yourself impure, right? To make impure. So the Gemara says, don't read it, to make yourself impure. Read the word. It should be nitamtem. What does nitamtem mean? It dulls the spirit, right? So when a person, if a Jew, let's say better, when a Jew eats something non-kosher, it dulls the spirit. It makes them not want to learn Torah. It makes them cynical about Torah, right? First thing, a secular Jew, is becoming religious. First thing you tell them, besides keeping Shabbos, that's also pretty crucial, and that is get all the garbage out of your system, right? You got to keep kosher because it affects you in a negative way, right? It's going to dull the spirit. Now, what's someone going to say that's obvious? Someone's going to say science has never proven such a thing, right? Science has never proven that you are what you eat, and it can have a negative effect. Very good. And it doesn't matter if science hasn't proven it. We've said many times, plenty of things science hasn't proven. That doesn't mean it's not true. Before they had, microscopes and whatever, science claimed all these different theorems, right, etc. And they wanted to bring logical proof why it's true, but they couldn't see. They couldn't see what a cell does and what the nucleus of a cell does, right? They believed all this stuff, okay, but they never saw it. They never saw it in action. Right, but people swear by science. I'm not even going to go into that. Right, people absolutely swear by science. Right, but just because science, again, is not proven it, does not mean in any way, shape, or form. As we mentioned many times, that's not true. Right, so it comes on the Ramban over here, and the Ramban says. The Ramban over here says, and it goes, so since it goes to the body, and it goes to the soul, right? It goes through the blood. Then what happens? It's very close to the nature of the nefesh behemoth. It goes very much to the nature of the animalistic part of the soul that a person eats. In other words, person ate that animal, it's like you're eating that soul. Now, that means you're going to take on those character traits again. Science hasn't proven it, but it has an effect. can have a totally negative effect. And the Ramban goes further. Why does it have such an effect? Again, that's the lowest form of the soul. That's how a person lives. If that part of the soul got cut off from the blood, that's it. Then the soul's going to die, right? Or the person's going to die, the soul will go out. But the point is, blood does not need digestion like other things that we eat. In other words, other things we eat, probably a lot of garbage also, right? Most things, that we eat, that are processed, right? Let's say. What happens? Person eats something, right? There's going to be nutrition 101 or 101A, or let's say biology even better, right? What happens over here? What happens is digestion. So when there's digestion, the food gets broken down, right? It gets broken down into sugars and amino acids and other things, right? Some things that are good, some things not. But what you eat is transformed, right? It gets transformed into other things. It gets broken down, let's say better. It gets broken down. Very good. So that's a longer process. Blood does not get broken down. If a person ate blood, it goes directly in your system, right? Does not get broken down. Does not change. So therefore, when a person eats it, the soul of the person gets intertwined with the blood of the animal. Now, let's make one thing clear. And, when it comes to non-kosher shechita, non-kosher ways of killing animals, right? Shoot it in the head, stun it, knife it to death, however the animal is killed that a Jew cannot eat. What's the issue over here? Right? The issue is that who says they do what we do? They don't. There's blood. There is for sure going to be blood that's left from that animal. Yeah, no question. What we do is what I saw being done was they cut open the animal. They wash the flesh, which, they wash the parts they cut off, whatever. We'll make this clean. Yeah, they wash it down very well. Then they put it in a ton of salt. That's why kosher meat is extremely salty. They put it in a ton of salt. Why they put it in a ton of salt? To draw out the blood. Very good. Right? They do it to draw out the blood. Because, again, it's a total prohibition for a Jew to eat blood. Now, non-Jews don't do that. They definitely don't go that far to get all the blood out. So now, what happens? What happens over here is if a person ate non-kosher, if a Jew, let's say better, if a Jew ate non-kosher meat, what's going to happen? The non-kosher meat's going to have blood in it, and the blood of the meat of the animal is going to be intertwined with the blood of the person, and that's going directly into the system. That doesn't get broken down. If you tell me, maybe if it gets broken down, maybe that's less an effect. Because it goes through, different parts of the body, so maybe it doesn't have the potent, effect that it would if it goes directly through the body, right? It doesn't need to be digested, right? So that can have a more potent effect over here. So says the Ramban over here, the soul of the person is going to be intertwined over here with the soul of the blood of the animal, i.e., whatever you ate, whatever non-kosher meat, a Jew ate, not a non-Jew. That blood, what happens, goes straight into the system. Goes straight directly in the system. I would say, very simply, that means it's going to have a negative effect. You're eating the soul of the animal. By eating the soul of the animal, it's going to have a negative effect. You are ingesting with this blood, you're ingesting basically the soul of the animal. Right? And the Ramban said before, a number of verses. Right? He said there are a number of verses that the soul is in the blood. We saw from verse 11, right? We're going to see from verse 14. We're going to see in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 23. We got 3-4 verses saying the exact same thing. The blood is in the soul, right? Or the soul is in the blood, let's say better. So therefore, when a person eats an animal, if it's non-kosher, again, right? It's non-kosher. There's blood in the animal. right? There's blood in the meat. You're eating the blood, goes directly in the system. The blood is in the soul. It's going to intertwine with the soul of a person directly. Directly, that's what's going to happen. Says the Ramban on that. All right, it says over there in verse 21. All right, says, I guess, in thing in Deuteronomy. Yeah, chapter 12, verse 21. I think it says over there. It says, who knows the spirit of man that goes up and the spirit of the animal that goes way down? Right? Very interesting. What does he say? What does he say over here? He's telling you that the Torah says the soul, right? Who knows the spirit of the soul? The human soul, what happens? Human soul after a person dies. We're not going to say nothing happens. What happens with the human soul? It goes up, right? It's going to get judged, right? It's for sure going to get judged. What happens? The soul of an animal, soul of the animal goes down, right? The soul of the animal goes down to the ground. Right? In other words, when an animal dies, no offense to any animal lovers, when an animal dies, nothing happens. Poof! The animal dies. That's it. It's only got the nefesh behem. It's only got the animalistic side. If it's only got the animalistic side, nothing happens to it. Yeah, it dies. Even you're going to tell me, what if a person got reincarnated as a dog or as a cat? What happens when the cat or dog dies? The soul goes up and gets judged, right? Again, reincarnation can happen. Person could come back, probably not today. Probably, I would think most souls have already come out. But regardless, even if that animal was a reincarnated soul, very good. The only problem is the animal's going to die, the soul's going to go up. It doesn't matter, right? So the dog, the cat, whatever animal it is, that animal's going straight into the ground, right? That animal's going to die. It's going to decay, right? All things being equal, nothing else happens. No doggy heaven, right? No cat heaven, for animals. But what about the soul? Right? So the Torah says, who knows the spirit or the soul of a person that it goes up, right? It's going to get judged. The soul of an animal, no. So the animal goes straight down. So then the Torah says, therefore, the Torah says in verse 14, Torah says that the soul of all flesh is in the blood. Every human, right? All the flesh are of a human and an animal. The life is in the blood, right? But what's the life in the blood is the soul, right? That the animalistic soul makes animals live, right? When God takes the soul out, it dies, right? God takes the soul out of us, we die. Essentially, the difference is animals go straight down. Nothing happens to them. They just go poof. They don't have a portion of the world to come, right? But a person's soul is going to get judged. Hopefully, they'll have a portion of the world to come. So then he says, based on that the flesh is in the soul. The soul's in the blood. Very good. It said it's not fitting to mix the soul that gets cut off with the soul that's established. Yeah, but the blood should be as an atonement on the altar for the sake of what God wants, for the sake of God's desire, right? Whatever God wants. So what's he telling you over here? He says that you're eating. So if you're eating, a Jew is eating something non-kosher meat. So when a Jew eats non-kosher meat, what happens? Right? Basically, the blood, which is the soul of the animal, is being mixed with the soul of a human. So he says, it's not fitting to mix the soul that gets cut off, i.e. the animal soul gets cut off, right? Right? It gets cut off. But the soul of a person is established. It exists, right? It doesn't die. Unless it's so evil that God destroys it. But Usually we say the soul is infinite, right? We're not going to go there, but we say the soul is infinite. So the Ramban over here says you don't mix an infinite soul that's going to be established in the next world and function however it does in the next world. You don't mix it with what? You don't mix it with the soul of an animal through the blood. That's going to have a negative effect. And again, even if science hasn't proven it, he says you don't mix. You don't need the soul of an animal. And because you don't need the soul of the animal, so what do you do with the blood? Very good. What do you do with the blood? So the blood goes on the altar as an atonement. Why does it go on the altar for atonement? Says the Ramban, Ratzon Lifnei Hashem. That's what God wants. That's what God desires. He wants the blood on the altar for what? Atonement. Right? It's very interesting. Kind of silly, but I'll just mention it. Just mention anyway, something everybody knows, but I'll mention it as well. Right? And that is the following. JC, JC himself was known, they claim, to be a sin offering. Okay. So I wouldn't have a problem with it. They compare him for that. Well, let's say, what do they call him? They call him the Paschal offering. They call him the Paschal offering. Now, what's the problem with the Paschal offering? Right? What's the problem with the Paschal offering? The problem with the Paschal offering is it's not a sin offering. Right? Most people are probably aware of that. It's not a sin offering. So if you're going to compare him to a sin offering, okay. We can have somewhat of a short discussion. But if you're going to compare him to a Paschal offering, that's what they compare him to, right? That's what the Gospels compare him to. So they compare him to a Paschal offering. What's the major problem with a Paschal offering? It's not a sin offering. No one ever says it's a sin offering. Right? That Paschal offering gets eaten on Passover. Right? It gets cut up, it gets salted, all that. Right? It gets eaten up. Never goes on an altar. It's for human consumption. You're using that sheep as human consumption. Right? For the sake of the Paschal offering. Very good. Where's it a sin offering? Where in the world do they see it's a sin offering? Right? It's kind of crazy. Right? It's kind of crazy. So therefore, says the Ramban, we'll finish up this Ramban, therefore the reason I said I commanded to the Jewish people, let's make clear, right? Let's make clear. The Ramban says, eating blood is forbidden for who? And I got hammered for this weeks ago. Oh, this rabbi says non-Jews can eat blood. Yeah. Because who's it talking to over here? It's talking to Jews. Yeah. Oh, but it says, Garrett, it says, a stranger there. Yeah. So it says stranger not allowed to eat blood. Right? Very good. So we spoke about that. But the Ramban here says clearly, I'm talking to the Jewish people. And therefore, for the Jewish people, the soul is in the flesh. Right? Sorry, the blood is in the soul. I keep getting it backwards. The blood is in the soul. And it's not good for a soul to eat another soul. The soul of a human to eat the soul of an animal. But what does God say? God says, I had compassion upon them. I had compassion upon the Jewish people. And therefore, I allowed them to eat meat. Right? But I allowed them to put the soul of an animal, i.e. the blood, on the altar as an atonement. As an atonement for their soul. Very good. Right? For an atonement. I didn't tell them to eat it. It says many times don't eat it. And the Ramban already said it's not a good mixture in the body. Right? To eat the soul of an animal. The soul of a human should not be intertwined with the soul of an animal. So why did he do it? So why did God have this blood in these animals? What did he use it for? He used it to atone. And he used the blood to put on the altar. Very good. Right? Very good. So then he brings down a Medrash, in Deuteronomy, and the Medrash says, name of Rabbi Yehuda, he says, these people steeped in blood, right? They use blood for all kinds of things, right? One of them we mentioned, as the Rambam said, Maimonides said, what do they use blood for? To get contact with demons, to know the future. But, says the Medrash over there in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, the blood is in the soul in order to tell you what causes this negativity. It's the blood. So a person shouldn't eat the soul of an animal because the soul is in the flesh, and the flesh is from blood. Very good. So if a person did that, and they're eating blood, that'd be a prohibition even for non-Jews, because that's Eiver Min HaChai. That's like eating something that's one of the no-hide laws, right? A non-Jew cannot eat a limb from a live animal. Yeah, so if you're eating the blood, okay, maybe tell me the animal's dead, right? But you're eating part of the animal with the blood, right? You said that's a hint. That's not direct. It's not direct in the verse, but you're eating a limb. It's like you're eating a limb or part of a limb from an animal that's got blood. Well, isn't that Eiver Min HaChai? Isn't that eating like a limb from a live animal? You say no. The animal's dead. Okay, right? Very hard for a non-Jew to be over that, to transgress that today, right? Unless you had an animal and just, you watch the animal suffer while you're roasting one of its limbs and it hasn't died yet, right? It's probably not very common. Probably not very common. Yeah, but he said it's a hint to that. Very good. And the last thing he ends with, he says, therefore, there's another mitzvah over here. Not only stay away from blood, but there's a mitzvah to cover blood. If a Jew ritually slaughters an animal or a bird, right, a big animal, small animal, or a bird, he's got to cover the blood, right? So that blood doesn't get mixed on the altar. Some of the blood goes on the altar, and some of the blood has to be covered. Even though by birds, there are only two types of birds that go on the altar, right? And they're not, they're not ritually slaughtered. But the majority of animals that are kosher, you find that are slaughtered. Why are they slaughtered? Not for food, for the sake of God, right? For the sake of atonement, and their blood's used for atonement. So their blood that's going to go on the altar, very good. You don't cover it. Why don't you cover it? Because it's used for the altar. You don't need to cover it. And we're not worried, it's going to get mixed in with other blood from animals that we eat, right? There are two things here. You got sanctified animals used in the temple, right? So these animals used for the sake of what? For atonement. Very good, right? They're used for the sake of atonement. So if they're used for the sake of atonement, we don't have to worry about covering the blood. Covering the blood's only used for what? If you eat the animal, very good. It's only if you eat the animal. But if it's used for atonement, it goes on the altar. We don't cover the blood. Okay. Now, why aren't we worried? Maybe that blood's going to get mixed in with blood from an animal that we would eat. So isn't that we're not worried about? Right? We're not going to worry about why? Because those type of animals weren't in the desert. Right? In other words, animals that were going to be used, if they're eating or whatever, that was a different issue. That was a different issue, not going to get mixed in. Right? We're not worried about that. It's not going to get mixed in. Right? And that's how it comes up. So yeah, there's an important thing about covering the blood. Now, normally we say a person who's killing a lot of animals, right? Ritually slaughtering a lot of animals, you make one blessing, right? One blessing for the whole thing. Well, the animals that you slaughter, blood has to be covered, right? Again, it's for consumption. The blood has to be covered. But if you use it, so he makes a distinction though. He says, if you're sanctifying the animals for the sake of heaven, i.e. for the sake of, the Mishkan, the Beis HaMikdash, for the temple, whatever you want to call it, and it's used for that and it's used for atonement. So the blood is going to go on the altar. Very good. So I don't have these other type of animals I'm going to eat. They're not around there. They're in a different place. So since they're in a different place, you might tell me, maybe, maybe we're worried. Maybe we're worried over here. They're going to get mixed together. Very good. Right? Maybe you tell me they're going to get mixed. Okay. But even if you tell me they're going to get mixed, then we're not worried about that. Right? We're not worried about that. Because these type of animals weren't around. Right? They weren't around the same place. Since they weren't around the same place, very good. I don't have to worry. Right? I don't have to worry. That's how it comes out according to the Ramban. Now, one thing, so there are a bunch of questions, they'll take them shortly. One thing is, he's stressing over and over, again, he brings verses from here, right? Verse 11, verse 14, right? Which you're going to see one day. And he brings from Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 23. Very clear, the Torah says, the blood is in the soul. That's very clear. So then how could a Jew eat the soul? How could the soul eat the soul? Now, the Ramban's telling you pretty clear that when a Jew, again, doesn't apply to a non-Jew, as we mentioned, but for a Jew, ingesting the soul of an animal, i.e. eating the blood, has an effect. He's saying a clear as day, it has an effect. And therefore, it's not fitting, he says, for the blood, for the soul that gets cut off, i.e. the animal, nothing's going to happen to it when it dies, it goes poof, to have any connection with the soul that's going to be, that lives forever. Neither one should come in contact with each other. The blood's going to affect, right? The blood is going to have an effect on the Jew, won't affect the non-Jew. For sure won't affect the non-Jew, right? As the Kli Yakar says, right? Which is interesting because I hear a lot, from a lot of people, they say, yeah, I keep kosher, whatever, they're not going to convert. So why keep kosher? They think it's better, it's healthier, doesn't affect them, right? It's like eating a placebo. Right? A placebo doesn't do anything. A person may think, oh, it healed me, it did this, it did that. Didn't do anything. That's what a person thought. Right? It's the manifestation of a person's emotions, psyche, whatever. But it didn't happen. It 100% didn't do anything. Why? Because they gave him a sugar pill. They thought they were getting a pill that's going to cure this disease, whatever it may be. They got a sugar pill. But they felt better, they felt stronger, this, that. I don't know what they felt, but it's not because of the pill. Because the pill, there's nothing in it. The pill is just sugar. Yeah, so for a non-Jew, that's what it is. That's what it is. Right now, people get offended and say, but, I want to keep Torah, to whatever I can. Okay, so, there are certain things you don't mix. There are certain limits, right? You want to be a Jew, be a Jew. You don't want to be a Jew, okay. That's fine. But why would this is what the Kli Yakar says. Why would somebody do something that doesn't affect them? He said a non-Jew is only going to keep things that have an effect on them. Right? Not that it has meaning or whatever. Forget about meaning. It has an effect. This does not have an effect. Keeping kosher has no effect. Right? Has no effect. Now, someone in the process of conversion, they should keep kosher. Right? They should practice keeping kosher. Now, could a person eat non-kosher up until the day they convert? Yes. 100% they could. Right? But, if you don't practice, it's going to be hard to stop. Right? But the point is that if they don't have the same makeup of the soul as a Jew does, and it doesn't affect them, right? If they're not in the process of conversion, why would they do it? Right? That's the question of Kli Yakar. Right? Why would they do it? They feel something that according to this, doesn't do anything for them. Doesn't do anything. A person in the process of conversion, that's a different issue. They're doing it as practice, still doesn't affect them. Still has no effect on them. Yeah, but they have to do it anyway. They have to practice doing it. When? Up until what part of the process? That's a good question. That's a very good question, right? But in general, they should practice at some point, right? At some point before conversion, right? Otherwise, it's going to be more difficult to do. But someone's a born Jew, that they have to start doing it straight away. You don't give them any time. That's the longer a Jew doesn't keep kosher, the harder it is for them to come back to Judaism. This is what makes somebody apathetic. This is what the Gemara says. Again, even if it hasn't been proven, right? Because the Gemara says it's tam mesalev. It makes a person apathetic. It dulls the spirit, right? If you take most non-Jews today, holding nowhere in the world, it's like trying to get them to even think about Judaism or whatever. It's like trying to start a Jeep with a 9-volt, or a Humvee, right? A Humvee with a 9-volt, holding nowhere in the world. So why are they cynical? Why? A lot of them cynical, and they make fun of, religious Jews and different things. Oh, you keep kosher, you think this, you think that, whatever. This is exactly the reason. Because it has a negative effect on the soul. And it makes them apathetic. So apathetic, I'm not going to say impossible. Makes it really, really hard for them to repent. Right? Makes them very, very difficult for them to repent. Right? That's the reason. That's the reason, because of the things they put in their body. Yeah, questions. Let's see. Let's see if there are any questions here. All right. Well, all negative behavior consciences in the world. Seems like people understood what it's the kosher. We're not torturing animals or whatever. Yeah, the world would be better. That's for Jews, not for non-Jews. Non-Jews have an obligation not to torture animals. Yeah, they're not allowed to torture animals. For them also might be a Torah prohibition. Not that penalty. They wouldn't get that penalty for it. But it's cruel. They're not allowed to be cruel. Right? Not allowed to be cruel to animals. It was a question someone asked me that can't come up, and that is there, is a non-Jew allowed to hunt for sport? Jews are not allowed to hunt for sport. The Maral, sorry, Noda Yehuda in Prague, 300-400 years ago, wrote a whole response on this. And he said it's basically cruel. It's cruelty to animals. Not to mention it's going in the ways of non-Jews, but essentially it's cruel to animals, which would be a Torah prohibition. The whole discussion is a Torah prohibition, rabbinic prohibition for a Jew. Pretty severe prohibition. And therefore, it's scaring the animals. So if you're scaring the animals, you're causing them pain. That's forbidden. That 100%. That 100% is going to be forbidden for a Jew. Now the question would be very good. What about a non-Jew? Yeah, does it affect the non-Jew? So I would say that since it's cruel to animals. Non-Jews also have to be sensitive to animals. They can't be cruel to animals just for the sake of being cruel. Now, if a person was starving, and the only way to survive was to trap an animal or hunt an animal, that's a different issue. I'm not talking about that. That's pikuach nefesh. That's, you do whatever you can to save a life. Right? That's a different issue. You can even desecrate Shabbos for that. Right? But that's a totally different issue. We're talking about hunting for sport. Right? There are people who like to hunt for sport. Okay. They like to hunt for sport. Very good. Right? Kill a deer, stick the head on your, get it stuffed afterwards, stick it on your mantle. Okay. People like that. People are into that. Very good. That's cruel. That's cruelty to animals. A Jew or a non-Jew is not allowed to be cruel to animals. Right? Now, someone's going to say, well, people understood what it means to eat kosher. That eating kosher for a Jew is the effect it has on the soul. On the positive effect it has. The soul doesn't mean, it doesn't mean they're going to be whistling Dixie and, keeping Torah mitzvahs and all that. But it's a barrier. It's a barrier that hinders them in keeping Torah mitzvahs. They won't be interested in keeping Torah mitzvahs. Yeah. So that's one thing. Torturing animals, another thing. Right? But we're not necessarily talking about torturing animals here. But again, a person is ingesting the soul of the animal. Right? That can have an effect. So the Ramban says it has such an effect because the blood does not get digested. The blood goes straight into the system. Right? Goes straight into the system. It's much more potent. Because if you tell me, it gets digested, it gets broken down and this and that, okay. You'll tell me it still have an effect, but maybe it won't have a strong effect. Maybe. Maybe it won't have a strong effect. Okay. Right? Maybe I'll sign off on that. But if it goes directly in the system, as the Ramban says, you're getting a full dose. You're getting a full dose of this animal in one shot of the soul of the animal. How can that not affect the person? Right? Again, people say, well, science hasn't proven it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if science has proven it or not. This is what we understand. It can have a potent effect. Definitely a potent effect over here. Broiled organ, parts, liver is acceptable without salting. Right, because salt won't take it out. Salt will not take it out. So therefore, How do you kosher liver? Right? You broil it. You absolutely broil it. Broiling it takes out the blood. If you tried to salt it, I mean, you can try this, buy liver. Buy liver that's not been broiled, right? Buy raw liver, right? And salt it and see what happens. It won't take out the blood, right? It will not take out the blood. So you have to broil it. Right now, the pan underneath, the blood goes out. You got to throw that pan away. Let's say you get an aluminum pan underneath, throw it away because you can't get any benefit from the blood. So, right, you have to chuck it. But if a person bought what do you call it? Whatever it is, the liver. Yeah. So a person, bought liver that wasn't kosher, you got to broil it. Absolutely, you got to broil it because the blood won't go out. So very good. Can't be salted. I agree. Right, but that's not regular. That's not regular meat. Regular meat, every other type of regular meat, probably except for the heart, also. But we don't eat hearts. We don't normally eat hearts, even though you could, in theory. Right? It's brought down that a person ate hearts. That it leads to forgetting Torah. Right, so we don't eat them. Right, not because you can't kosher it. You could. It's also very bloody. Right, very good. You can do the same thing, but we don't eat them. Right, liver we eat. Very good. We're gonna broil it. That's the only way to get the blood out. Right? That is the only way to get the blood out. That's why you don't salt it. Yeah, also, someone here mentions, very good, Jesus compared to the lamb, the Egyptian deity was destroyed, right? Right? But I think it's more ironic in the sense, okay, so the Jewish people had to kill that animal in front of the Egyptians, otherwise they wouldn't get out of Egypt. Yeah, but the irony is that animal has nothing to do with atonement. That's a major question. If you want to tell me it's compared to a sin offering, you bring all this proof for a sin offering, okay. Right? So good. So you're talking about a sin offering. If you're talking about a Paschal offering, it has nothing to do with sin. Nothing. Not even Webster's 8th definition. It has nothing to do with sin. Yeah. But it's ironic also because that was the god that was the Egyptian god that the Jews slaughtered in order to get out, right? Right? Also true. Right. Someone asked that why Christians anoint their homes with oil in the form of a cross. I don't know. You have to ask Christians why they do that. I've heard people tell me that Passover, one of the things they do is they take, blood, put it on the doorpost. There's no reason to do that at all. Right? It's not in commemorating really anything. Right? That's what the Jews had to do to go out of Egypt. Right? It is kind of ironic also. They saw all the plagues. And God says, I got one more thing you got to do. Right? You have to kill their God in front of them, take the blood, sprinkle it on the door, because I'm going to kill the firstborn. I'm going to pass over, pass over, a Jew's house, and I'm going to see the blood, and I won't kill the firstborn there. People were incredulous, like, Mo, like, what are you kidding? We survived all this, and we saw all this destruction and whatever. We now have to kill the Egyptian God in front of them? They're going to kill us. Moses says, don't worry about it. God's going to take care of you. This is what you have to do to get out. It's like incredulous, right? The last aspect of Mesiras Nefesh, of self-sacrifice, God wanted to see from the Jewish people before he let them go. Before he let them go out. Before he freed them from slavery. Mind-boggling, right? Imagine, make this a little more graphic. Imagine, a person goes to India. Yeah, person goes to India. He takes a cow in front of everybody, says, okay, repeat after me. We're gonna make burgers. We're gonna have a lot of burgers and steak. Person gets slaughtered. No pun intended. What, are you gonna take this holy cow, make it into burgers? That's what it's like. That is what it's like. In front of their face. Right? So imagine God comes to a person and says, yeah, don't worry about it. You're gonna do it right in front of their face. They're not gonna do anything to you. They won't be able to do anything to you. I'll take care of it. But you have to do it. You have to do it and sprinkle the blood and put the blood on your doorpost. Otherwise, you don't get out. So that would be equivalent. That'd be equivalent of doing it, in front of these people and making burgers out of a cow. To me, that's what it would be equivalent to. Are you going to do it in front of their face? You got guts, I tell you that. But if God tells you to do it, that's what you got to do, right? That's exactly what you got to do. Yeah. Let me see other questions here. 1 second. Okay. Someone here says, according to what they've read, which isn't a lot. Okay. Right. Saying not keeping kosher can make a person's heart insensitive. Right. Become less observant, the fear and love of God. They don't become observant at all. Not even less observant. They don't want to keep any mitzvahs. Right? The opposite is true for someone who does. Why? Someone who keeps kosher, right? For a Jew, not for a non-Jew. Right? For a Jew, it should draw them closer. Right. Right. It would draw them closer. It should draw them closer. But I'll ask you a question. Imagine on Sukkot. Right? Imagine on the holiday of Sukkot. Person takes his lulav, right? His palm fronds, his lemon on steroids, his citron, his esrog, as we would call it, his aravas, his willows, and his myrtle leaves, and his hadassim. Very good. So imagine, a non-Jew walks in to synagogue at that time when they're doing all the shaking of the lulav, right? So imagine, this non-Jew sees these Jews, synagogue, they're shaking it like this. They're shaking it like this. They're shaking it like this. They're shaking it to the side. They're shaking it up. They're shaking it down. Right? Now, you'd ask somebody, it's like, wow, what an experience. How much closer do you feel to God right now? Now, see, I grew up with this. I saw lulav back in the day. Didn't know what it represented, what it meant, different things. But on Sukkot, you shake a lulav. Right? You have an esrog, a lulav, myrtle leaves, whatever. That's what you do. But if you don't learn about it, you don't know what it means. Forget about Kabbalah. You don't learn about it. Simple explanation, what you're doing or attempting to do. How much meaning does it really have? Now, we do have a Talmudic discussion whether mitzvah tzrichas kavana or not. Do mitzvahs need intention? So we hold, in the end, mitzvahs don't need intention. It's better to have intention, for sure. If you had negative intention, let's say you had negative intention, you say, I'm not doing this to perform the mitzvah, okay, right? Then they're not doing the mitzvah. But let's say, what level of intention do you have to have? The person sat down to Passover Seder. Yeah. They ate the matzah. They ate, all this matzah. Yeah. But they never have intention for Passover. They ate matzah in general. Not for the sake of the mitzvah, whatever. They get credit. C minus, but they get credit. They get some level of credit. If they had negative intention, different issue. Right? But the point is, if you don't learn about it, you don't try to understand it to the best of your ability, it still has an effect. It'll have an effect on a person's soul. We don't necessarily see it, but again, a person sits down to a meal. They have a barbecue, they have a braai, as they would say, South Africa. You have a braai, yeah. So, you got hamburgers, you got steak, you got hot dogs, and well, we're not going to eat hot dogs because that's all the garbage from the animal they put in a hot dog. But okay, we're not going to go there. So you eat. You have this, you have this barbecue, you're totally stuffed. You say, wow, I ate all this kosher food. Do we understand the effect that it has on the person? Do we see the effect that it has on the person? No, we don't see it. But again, when it comes to doing a mitzvah in general, you have to understand to the best of your ability why you're doing it. You're still going to get the soul will be affected by it at whatever level person does it. We don't, person feels more inspired, less inspired. But I had somebody once tell me they gave during the winter. They came to visit when I was in the States. They brought sweaters for my kids. Now, the sweaters were, it said 100% wool. So I thanked them very much. It said 100% wool. And I said, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with it. I'm sure it's okay. But I have to get it checked. They're like, what do you have to get it checked for? They asked me. I said, I got to get a check for shotness. They're like, what's shotness? I said, the Torah says you can't mix wool and linen together. So if it says 100% wool, someone, knows how to check these things. You take it to them to check. They check in different places, see if there's any flax or any linen in there, to make sure there isn't, which most likely is probably not the case. But anyway, you got to get it checked. So the person asked me why. I said, it's a good question. We don't know. Right? We don't necessarily know why. It's a chok. It's a law we don't necessarily understand. Right? It's a command in the Torah. So it says, but if you don't understand it, why would you keep it? Right? So I said, okay, if I gave you 10 different answers, would you keep it? You probably throw out different reasons. Oh, that doesn't appeal to me. That doesn't fit my agenda. That, you give me Webster's 8th definition or whatever it may be. Yeah, nothing real. But you'll say, well, if I don't really understand it, why would I keep it? So Judaism is about action. 80% of the Torah or more does not make sense logically. I still have to keep it, right? But I would say the more a person does and the more a person keeps and they do it the right way, it does affect them. Right? I'll give a very simple example. Forget about food, right? It's harder to see, right? I'll give a more basic example. Let's say somebody works on themselves. I give this example all the time. They work on themselves 1 hour a day. They're not going to curse. They're not going to curse. So now they have a sensitivity to not cursing. They hear someone curse, I'm like, oh, that person's disgusting. How could they curse? How could they, this or that or the other thing, right? So then imagine, before Sukkot, they're building the sukkah. They take right hammer, right hand, left thumb, right? Boom, left thumb. Now they scream out in pain, but they don't curse because they've been working on themselves. They don't curse. So I said, that's great. The person, they were so proud of themselves because they've been working on themselves. And even at that point, they didn't curse. They didn't say any curse words. I said, let me ask you. I said, that's beautiful. I said, did you think any curse words? They're like, come on, Rabbi, I'm not a saint. I'm not Moses here. I'm not going to say I didn't think any curse words. Okay, there are levels. There are levels to each. That's one example. Second example, person learns the laws of Lashon Hara. What they're allowed to say, not allowed to say. Right? And they're careful how they speak about others. Right? So now when they hear people, and this comes up all the time, people tell me all the time in their jobs, they hear people saying this and that and the other thing, oh, it's all Lashon Hara. Right? Everything in the news is Lashon Hara. Everything over the media is Lashon Hara. Right? Most of it. So they're sensitive now. Now, Lashon Hara, a person speaks, a Jew speaks Lashon Hara, 30 prohibitions. More than 30 prohibitions in one shot. So it's a very, very serious effect on a person. If, it's one of the 4 categories, one of the 4 groups, the Rabbeinu Yonah says, and Shari Tshuva, gates of repentance that will not see God's presence in the next world. But who's that talking about? A habitual speaker of Lashon Hara. It's not talking about someone who makes mistakes. Someone who makes mistakes, okay. Right? Someone doesn't care and they just speak Lashon Hara all the time, which most people do. Right? Certainly in the secular world, no question. Right? Most people do. So if that's the case, then people like that, God's not going to give them a portion of the world to come unless they repent. Because God doesn't want to see them because they're habitual speakers of Lashon Hara. You see this week's Parsha, right? At the end of the Parsha, you see about, what do you call it? The end of last week's Parsha, the end of last week's Parsha about what Miriam said about Moses' wife. And Moses being the most humble of all people and all that. Yeah. So she got thrown out of the camp. They had to wait 7 days, for the tzaras. That's what you get for speaking Lashon Hara, this spiritual manifested disease. People call it leprosy. It's not necessarily leprosy, but whatever it is. So if a person is sensitive and they're working on themselves not to speak Lashon Hara or not to hear Lashon Hara, over time, what they say and how they speak is going to be very different. That they can measure. That for sure they can measure. Because they're much more sensitive now. So once a person is more sensitive, like, oh, I can't believe a person said that. How can they speak like that? And 2 weeks before, you were no different. All right? You spoke the same way. You didn't care what you said about people. All of a sudden now you hear about the laws of Lashon Hara. So now you want to, You want to start, practicing not speaking Lashon Hara, whatever, start learning the laws, very good. But now you're sensitive. So now you're sensitive, that's a whole different thing. Before, you had no idea. You had absolutely no idea. Now it's a different issue. A very, very different issue. So every mitzvah person doesn't just mean keeping kosher. Every mitzvah person does, it's going to affect you. It's the Mishnah Berurah says in ethics, for our fathers, mitzvah gorer, mitzvah, vera gorer, a vera. The more a person does a mitzvah, they're going to want to do more mitzvahs. When a person sins, they're going to want to do more sins. Right? So, you get repentance in between, and you got to fight your evil inclination, and right, there are a lot of other things going on. But I guarantee, when a person starts taking on certain things, it changes who they are. It transforms who they are. Because you're going against the tide of the world. The tide of the world is, why the non-Jews not going to convert, don't need to learn the laws of Lashon Hara, because it don't make sense universally. Right? A non-Jew only has to keep the Noahide laws. They only have to keep laws that make sense universally. Right? So imagine, tell a sect you a Jew or non-Jew. Right? You tell them, even if you know something is true, even if, let's say, everybody knows it, the whole world knows it. Right? We'll make it very simple. Everybody knows all over the news, all over the internet, and let's say it's 100% true. So Chofetz Chaim there says, you got to be careful repeating it. Everyone's going to say, what do I have to be careful repeating it? Everybody knows it. There are certain conditions you're allowed to repeat it. Okay. You got to fulfill certain conditions. And even the Chofetz Chaim says, even if you think you fulfilled them, it could be you didn't. So then you transgress the laws of Lashon Hara. But that doesn't make sense logically. Logically, it doesn't make sense. If I know something to be true, what do I need conditions? Everybody knows it to be true. Let's say. Right? Let's say everybody knows it. Okay. So even if everybody knows it, doesn't give me the right to repeat it whenever I want. Laws of Lashon Hara are complex. You got to continually learn the laws of Lashon Hara every day. Otherwise, it's very easy to transgress. Very, very easy. So in that case, when a person refrains from speaking against others, right, that would be forbidden. So over time, isn't that person going to feel something different? Of course, they're going to feel something different, right? Come Shabbos, person sanctifies the day, cleans their house, cleans their room, makes special food. That doesn't affect the person? Of course it's going to affect the person. But there are certain things we don't necessarily see, right? Person keeps kosher, very good. We don't see that effect, how it affects them. I don't see it, right? A person shakes a lulav. If you don't know what you're doing, shaking a lulav, you don't see the effect it does on your soul. You won't see that, until a person dies. You'll see the effect later. But we don't necessarily see it. But doing mitzvahs, what does it do? It puts in the sense in us that we want to do more mitzvahs. We want to be close to that. God gave us a way to be close to Him. The way to be close to Him, there's only one way to do it. The way to do it is to keep the Torah the way He wants. The way He passes it down to Moses, Moses passes it down to us. Right? That's the only way. Now, there are things I think are more obvious that have a much greater effect on a person. Right? What they hear, what they see, I think has a much greater effect. We don't necessarily see when a person does other mitzvahs. If a person, let's say I was wearing a wool suit, very good, right? Doesn't have shatnez in it, right? It was checked, not a problem, right? Doesn't have any mixture of wool and linen, perfect. Yeah. Do I see how it affects me by wearing it? I want, and let's say it's very hot. Yeah, it's very hot. Okay, very good. So you're wearing it anyway, right? You're wearing it anyway. Very good. Do we see in general how it affects us in spiritual terms? We don't see it. There are a lot of things we don't see, but there are other things we do. Speaking Lashon Hara is one of them. Person becomes more sensitive. Cursing is one of them. Person's more sensitive. But even keeping Shabbos, keeping other holidays, they feel the holiness of it. If it's done right, you're in the right atmosphere. You see it. Person's in synagogue, people are praying, they have, a lot of fervor, people are learning, there's a nice, is a nice air, so to speak. In synagogue, people learning and whatever, listening to classes, very good. that has an effect. There are things I would say have more effect, less effect, right? But again, the Gemara says if a person eats, if a Jew eats non-kosher, it affects them in a negative way. Now, we don't, again, science hasn't proven it. But all these secular Jews don't have anything to do with Judaism. That's probably an effect of it, right? They're apathetic. It's very hard to inspire someone who's apathetic. But every mitzvah we do strengthens us in wanting to keep God's law. But there are plenty of other things in the world that affect us in a negative way, right? Affects us in a totally negative way. So we got to be careful of evil inclination also, no question. So the more we do, the better it affects us in a positive way. It should affect us in a positive way. But again, even if things we don't, things we eat, or like I said, by shaking a lulav, do we see the effect that it has on us? No. For some people, they really know what they're doing. You can see the radiance on their face. You can see something by them. I think the average person, since they don't look into it enough, they'll get the mitzvah for it. There's no question. Probably spent, good chunk of money on their lulav and esrog. Okay. Very good. But at the end of the day, what's going on? They could have a much higher level. It can affect them in a much greater way, but they're not doing it that way, right? But again, for some people they feel it much more. Some people less. Depends. It depends. It depends what it is, right? Another example: a person, let's say, gives someone charity. Person does an act of loving kindness that they feel good about. They're helping someone else, right? That's more direct. So now they get involved. They want to help others. Whatever it may be, whatever the thing may be, that can affect a person totally directly. So, there are plenty of mitzvahs that a person can do that can affect them tremendously. Imagine a person in synagogue on Rosh Hashanah, they hear the shofar. The shofar is the shrill. It's not like a nice sounding flute or whatever, right? When you hear the shofar, what are we thinking? We want to be better. We want to strive to be better. Right? It's not about atonement. It's not about sin. Right? Rosh Hashanah is all about judgment. Right? But that should scare the dickens out of somebody. It's not like you're just playing like a nice song or it's a flute or whatever. Right? This thing is a shrill. It should, should give a person fear of heaven. So there are different times for different things that can affect us in different ways. But again, there are things we don't necessarily feel. A person eats something that's, not healthy for them, but they make a blessing on it and whatever. Okay. Does the person see how that affects them, affects their soul? They don't see it. They don't feel it. Maybe, get sugar high or sugar low or, whatever. But we don't necessarily see the effect. Doesn't mean it doesn't affect it. Right. By other things that, a few examples I mentioned, I think a person can see how that would affect them, more, more directly. Someone says with the person of non-kosher animals. So God keeps them around in order to keep their species around. Now, some animals have died out. Why did they die out? Because God didn't need them. And, I'll give you an example, the great sea monsters. I don't know, some say crocodiles, whales, I don't know exactly. Right? Rashi says, brings out from the Gemara, Rashi said by the Leviathan, God salted away the female. Right, for the righteous in the world to come. Right, when the Messiah comes, they're all going to be feasting on this fish. So what's the joke? Why not meat? Why are we going to eat this fish? Yeah, so you're going to say, wait a minute, whose rabbinic supervision is it? Oh, Mashiach? You gave the rabbinical supervision? No, I'll take the fish. Yeah, okay, that was a joke. But what would be the point? If they would multiply, they destroy the world. So what's the point of creating them and then solve the one away for the future? Right? It's kind of hard to, understand. Or why do some species seem to die out or almost die out? Right? I would say they die out. Why would a species die out? Because God doesn't need them. Now, there are plenty of species out there, when it comes to insects and other things. Again, they haven't figured out everything. Why you have certain species of things. You have some things that eat, that eat, smaller bugs, and that's good because, then these smaller bugs cause all kinds of havoc, eating plants or, destroying other things. So whatever, there is a hierarchy in that chain of, what these things do, what their purpose is. Have they figured out everything, but every animal or every insect? I don't think so. Right? They're just coming to the realization now, dog, this person has an appendix, right? Normally, an appendix bursts, you take it out, right? You have no choice, you take it out. It's dangerous, right? Person can die, right? But they didn't know what the appendix was for. I think only recently, right? In recent history, they're actually figuring out, what the purpose of the appendix is. But for years, I mean, throughout the millennium, they didn't know. They didn't have an idea, even a good idea, what the purpose of the appendix is. The only thing they do know is that if it bursts, you take it out. Yeah. So, insects and animals have a purpose. We definitely have a purpose. We might not understand the purpose for all of them, right? But why would it? Let's ask a little bit different. Why would a species disappear? Why would an insect or animal? Why would they disappear? Because God doesn't need them anymore. Why did all those animals come into the ark? Right, pure animals, the impure animals, because God wanted to perpetuate their species. Why? Again, if I knew, a lot of these answers, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I'd be world famous, right? They have a purpose, right? That there are plenty of insects. We know what the purpose of them is and what they do, right? Other things we may not know, right? The purpose of non-kosher animals, right? One purpose can be, again, we said before, right? What do the Ramban here say? Right? The Ramban here said before, he mentioned it last week, that the whole purpose of animals is for the purpose of man. Right? We're the only ones that can recognize our creator, the Ramban says. So he's talking about about eating animals, right? He only gave permission to eat after the flood, right? But he says that we have the ability to use animals for whatever we want, even non-kosher animals. The only difference is you're not allowed to eat non-kosher animals. Very good. Right? We're not allowed to eat them. Okay. So you're not allowed to eat them, they still have a purpose. Right? I can use their skin. Yeah. I could make an alligator pocketbook, alligator boats. Right? What's the problem? All the PETA pet activists, whatever you call them, they'll jump up and down and say that's cruelty to animals. I can use animals for what I want as long as I don't abuse them. Right? As long as I don't abuse them. Right? So what can I use them for? I can use them to make lampshades. I can use them to make a pocketbook. As long as you don't abuse them. Right? So non-kosher animals can have that, that purpose, but they can have a million other purposes, right? For what they do in the environment. Right? You need certain things to keep, other bugs and insects away, from destroying crops, for instance. So you got other animals that take care of them, keep them in line, so to speak. So you don't have that problem. Right? But they can have a million different purposes. Right? So I think quite a few animals and insects, we understand what the purpose is. Right? And the ones that we don't, I'm not going to say it matters, that doesn't necessarily matter. But just because we don't necessarily understand what their purpose is doesn't mean they don't have a purpose. Right? But for non-kosher animals, I can use them for whatever I want. Right? I can use them for scientific experimentation to cure diseases. That's not a problem. I can use them for that. Right? Mice, use them for that. If you got cats, take care of the mice. Mice take care of other smaller animals. Right? So, there's a hierarchy over here. It could be a million, a lot of different reasons. Those that might just be a few of them. Yeah. Someone asked, what's the correct understanding of hunting for sports? For example, a person went fishing, and you caught a lot of fish, and we ate the same day. Okay, that's not for sport. You're eating an animal. You're eating fish. I don't know. Fish is not a problem. I don't think fish is the problem. You're gonna eat them, right? Hunting for sport means you're just hunting them for the sake of the chase, for the sake of trying to kill them, trying to get them. Not necessarily to eat them. Yeah, again, if a person would run after, I don't know, deer or whatever, and you're not hunting for fun, you're hunting for food, that's a different issue. That'd be a different issue. Hunting for sport means you're not using the animal for anything. You're just hunting it for the sake of hunting it. That's the problem. That's where it becomes cruel. If you're hunting it for food because you want food, that's a different issue. That's different issues. That wouldn't be called cruel. What's called cruel is hunting for the sake of hunting, right? You don't plan to eat it. Going fishing, not a problem, right? You got to take them and eat them. Could a person hunt? Not hunt. Could a person, go fishing, for the sake of just fishing and not eat them? Is that considered the same thing as hunting? I don't think it's the same thing as hunting. I don't think people would consider fishing, even if you don't eat the fish, considering cruel. I don't know if that's necessarily considered cruel. Could be. I don't think so. When we talk about hunting in general, it's like you have, let's say you have, I don't know, dog running after other animals, trying to scare them or trying to get them into traps or whatever. That's a problem. That's a problem. If you're telling me people are doing it for the sake of food, so that wouldn't be a problem. But if they're doing it just for the sake of sport, just for the sake of fun, has nothing to do with eating them or whatever, yeah, that would be a problem. So fishing, I don't think comes under this category. I have a hard time imagining anyone's going to say fishing is a problem for sport. That's considered hunting for sport. I have a hard time imagining that. I can understand other animals. Person hunts for sport. Yeah, they're just doing it for the sake of the chase, but they're not doing it for the sake of eating the animal. That's a different issue. That would be considered cruel. Broiled liver is acceptable. Broiled liver, right? Because you took the blood out, right? Why is not meat applicable? Because broiling it doesn't take the meat, doesn't take the blood out. The reason is because liver is saturated blood, right? There is no way to take out the blood except for, because there's so much blood, right? Anyone's ever seen a raw liver? There's so much blood, salting won't help. Salting won't get it out. By meats, by meat, it's not so bloody. I mean, I'm not saying that's not bloody. It is bloody, right? But broiling it's not going to get it's not going to get all the blood out per se because it doesn't have as much meat. So it doesn't have as much blood, right? So how do you get it out? You get it out with salt, right? You have to salt it. So in this case, you're right. In this case, you can't salt it, right? You cannot salt liver. Salt will not take blood out of the liver. Salt is good enough. You put enough salt there, it's good enough to take all the blood out of the meat. I don't need to broil it. Meat in general, animal meats, cow meat or deer meat is not so radically bloodier, or has so much more blood than liver. Liver's got a ton more blood. So I don't have to get myself into that problem and say, oh, maybe I have to broil it. Why would I have to broil it? I can salt it. Or I can salt it. That gets the blood out easier. Right? Here you have no choice. You can't salt it. Right? Really, by liver, you should also salt it. 100% you should salt it. Right? The problem is you don't have enough salt in the world to take the blood out. It doesn't do it. Right? So therefore you gotta broil it. Right? That's the most important thing. So when it says people cussing, people cursing, puts a knot in their stomach. Yeah, because that's where a person sees that they have a higher sensitivity, right? And that higher sensitivity says, oh, I can't believe people speak like that. Doesn't matter if you spoke like that or whatever. I had somebody once tell me off years ago, and this person spoke like a truck driver, so to speak. And I was like, that's how you speak in front of your kids. And I didn't think anything wrong with it. I didn't think anything wrong with it at all. Right? They would never think anything wrong with it. Right? But if you'd ask people, wasn't here. Most people would say, no, it's fine. Most people would say that if, would you curse? in front of your kids. Now, depending on the age of kids, the age of their kids. Some people say, no, I would never curse in front of my kids. I would never curse in front of my kids. On the other hand, some people may say, yeah, so what? So what if they hear me curse? Yeah. I never heard anyone get reprimanded unless they were very young. Unless they were, let's say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, or whatever, maybe even a little bit older. That the parents chastise them for cursing. Yeah. If they were younger, for sure. For younger, for sure, I've heard some people like wash their kids out, wash their kids' mouth out with soap. I think kids would probably turn them into the police if they did that. Right. But at a younger age, I would hear they don't want kids talking like that. Once they get older, they don't stop it. I don't think they stop it. Yeah, it depends what age. It depends what age. Right. But, it depends. Someone here says, even if they slip up and say something, yeah, it's a problem. But that shows that, again, this is a show of growth, because that's showing you have sensitivity. You have a sensitivity to someone who curses. Even if you used to do it, doesn't matter. But now you have a sensitivity. That's spiritual growth. Because most people could care less if you curse or not. Everybody does. I was in the States a couple of years ago, right? And, people curse left and right. They don't think about it. I didn't bother saying anything. What am I going to say? How dare you curse? Don't you know that's bad? I'm not going to listen. Why are we not going to listen? Right? But it doesn't even register. That's the whole point. It doesn't even register in their minds there's anything wrong with it. They'll say at a certain age, a kid shouldn't curse. Good. There are people who have sensitivity to that. Okay. Because they want little kids cursing. Or little kids, let's say, giving the finger. That's, they don't want that. That's disrespectful, totally disrespectful. Once they're older, and they're teenagers, this and that, okay, it's a different world. It's a different world. Curse all the time, or maybe not all the time, some of the time. But they don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's the point. They don't think there's anything wrong with it. They don't think there's anything wrong with it. Parents going to discipline a teenager for cursing? I don't know. Maybe some will. That's like part of culture. People curse. I'm not saying they curse every second, but that's the norm. I'm saying anything outrageous, that's the norm. People think you're crazy. You're going to say, you shouldn't curse, it's not nice. Why? They'll say F you. Like, what do you care? They don't care. They don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm not talking about taking God's name in vain and all that. It's a whole other issue. They don't think it's an issue. It depends what age. Much younger age. They don't want their kids cursing at a much younger age. Okay. Right? Depends what age. But, yeah, someone here says it seems all non-kosher animals have a purpose. You're right. They have a purpose. My point was, does science know the purpose of every living creature? I don't think so. You might have an idea of some, a lot of them, okay. What their purpose is. I don't, that mean they figured out every purpose? Keep in mind this, even if they understand the purpose, is that the only purpose? Right, they'll pinpoint it and say that's the reason. Okay. But there could be 100,000 other reasons why. The Torah says don't steal. Don't we understand why it's a good thing not to steal? Makes sense? Makes perfect sense. Why a person shouldn't steal. Does it mean that that's the only reason, the one that makes sense? No. Could be 100 other reasons why God says not to steal. They're not revealing all the reasons. And science hasn't come up with an exhaustive list. Maybe they have. Maybe certain animals have got 10 reasons why they're in this world. Okay. But in God's mind, couldn't there be 100 reasons why? 1,000 reasons why he created them that way? Of course. Right? That's why a person has to understand that when the Torah says you're not allowed to do this or do that, there's a difference of opinion. Let's say the reason doesn't apply today. So the difference of opinion, if the reason doesn't apply, you still have to do it. Some say, even if it doesn't apply, you still have to do it. Others say that if the reason doesn't apply, you don't have to do it. It's a difference of opinion. It comes on the Vilna Gaon more than 250 years ago. Vilna Gaon said, even if the rabbis gave a reason or a number of reasons why something may be forbidden, doesn't mean it's the reason. So therefore, even if the reason doesn't apply, you still have to keep it. Right? You still have to do it. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Someone says, hunting for sport and taxidermy is disgusting. Yeah. But, other people don't think it's disgusting. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. They think hunting for fun is fun, it's enjoyable. Oh, but the animal and this, what do they care? That's cruel, right? 100% that's cruel. Someone says it's cruel when the fish is gasping for air. Okay, let's say you're going to eat the fish, kosher fish. How do you kill it? What's the easiest way to kill it? Put it on dry land. I kill it any way I want. Cut its head off, bash it in the head. There's no proper way according to the Torah to kill a fish. Right? It doesn't matter. You can do it that way. You just, cut them open or whatever. Whatever different ways to do it, it's not necessarily cruel. Right? Even the gasping for air, it's not a problem. That's the easiest way to kill them. 100%. It's the easiest way to kill them. Right? Take them out of their environment. Right? Take them out of water, they'll die. Right? They'll just shrivel up. So that's not considered cruel. So the thing is, by blood, right? It's the most important thing to avoid. I mean, non-kosher animals in general shouldn't do. Right? You should eat. If going and there's no kosher choices such as steak, can you get it well done? How does it help? Right? It's not, again, for a Jew, you can't do that. For sure, you can't do that. Right? Because it's not ritually slaughtered. So if it's not kosher, it doesn't matter how you cook it. Right? How you cook it's not going to help. Right? You got a different prohibition. Prohibition is the meat is forbidden to eat, period. The meat you're not allowed to eat. Very good. So what do I care if you what do you call it? If you you roast it or you eat it in a different way, right? Or you get the blood out. Getting the blood out doesn't help you, right? Because the whole thing is not kosher. So getting the so you can say, well, at least I'm not eating the blood. Okay, but you're not eating kosher either. So is that better? I don't know if it's better. I wouldn't necessarily say it's better. You're over probably a rabbinic prohibition. Or let's say better, no, you're over a Torah prohibition eating non-kosher animal. Okay, right? Because it's not ritually slaughtered, so it's not kosher. Very good. Right? Even if it was ritually slaughtered, it wouldn't matter, right? Let's say non-kosher animal. Doesn't help. But that'd be one issue. There's another issue, eating blood. Right? Eating blood of the animal also. Let's say a person ate a kosher animal. Let's say they slaughtered themselves, right? Well, it's the same thing. They slaughtered themselves, but they didn't clean out the blood. But they didn't. Let's say they didn't ritually slaughter it. Yeah. Let's say they killed it, so it's not kosher. So you got two issues here. First of all, you're eating non-kosher meat. Second of all, you're eating meat that's probably got blood in it. Right. So they're both bad. What's worse? What would be worse in theory? I don't know. I got to think about that. Eating blood's pretty bad. Eating non-kosher animals also bad. Right? And eating the blood, well, eating both affects you in a bad way if you're a Jew, right? For sure affects you in a bad way. What's worse? I got to think about that one. Yeah. Here's the kosher McDonald's restaurant, which is open today. There are kosher restaurants, right? There are kosher McDonald's because they have kosher meat. But I'll tell you a story. It can only happen in Israel. You have the most glatt kosher treif non-kosher McDonald's. Why? Because they use kosher meat, kosher cheese, put them together, make a cheeseburger. That's Torah prohibition. That 100% is Torah prohibition, right? You have kosher cheese, kosher meat. You put it together, right, over a fire. That makes it non-kosher, right? That's forbidden. Now, McDonald's in general, not kosher meat, rabbinic prohibition. Right, a non-kosher cheeseburger is a rabbinic prohibition. The only time you have a Torah prohibition is if you have kosher cheese, kosher milk. Sorry, kosher cheese, kosher meat, and you put them together. right? That would be a total prohibition. Any other form of a mixture of milk and meat will be rabbinic prohibition. So is there a kosher McDonald's? Yes. But again, even if they have cheese, there'd be fake cheese, wouldn't be kosher cheese. But you have non-kosher McDonald's that use, real cheese, so it makes it non-kosher. Can a JIT butcher their own livestock? Yeah, why not? That wouldn't be a problem. Right? If you're going to keep kosher, that's a different issue. If you're going to keep kosher, you can't do it. Right? You can't do it because you wouldn't know the laws. You wouldn't know the laws how to ritually slaughter. Ritual slaughter is very intricate. Laws are very complex. First one have to learn all the laws under someone who can teach them the laws. Then once you master the laws, then you get to the practical thing of how to do it. Right? But you got to master the laws. Right? So could you do it on your own as a JIT, as a Jew in training? Sure. It wouldn't be an issue. But ritual slaughter, different issue. Right? That would be a different that'd be a different issue. Keep in mind, let's say even if you know how to ritual slaughter as a non-Jew, let's say, then you take the meat, you salt it. Let's say you get all the blood out of the meat, right? Now you fry it up. Now you fry it up. You made a tray, right? You made it non-kosher. You did everything right, still not kosher. That's why I tell people never, you shouldn't buy too many pots and pans because you're gonna have to kosher them anyway. Right after conversion, because even if it's kosher and you cook everything and it's done with the highest rabbinic supervision, so you still, a Jew still can't eat it. You could eat it, but it's still not kosher, right? Still not kosher. Kind of, ironic in certain ways, right? So I speak about that in the laws of Kashrus, but in general, you'd have to kosher the pot, kosher the pan all over again anyway, right? So it doesn't make sense to buy so many things, so many pots and pans until right before conversion. And the old pots and pans, you could probably kosher them. With the silverware, you can probably kosher them. Right? There might be an issue. Let's say you had knives that were, let's say steak knives, but it's got a wooden handle. So if you could take the wooden handle off, right, you could kosher it also. Right? The question is, wood doesn't necessarily kosher, but some say you could kosher it the normal way because that's the only way to kosher it. Others say since wood can't be koshered or you can't get the rest of the metal plates, the metal thing for the knife out, then you wouldn't be able to kosher it. But regular stainless steel silverware or cutlery, whatever you want to call it, you can kosher it, right? But you're only going to kosher it right before conversion, right? Sorry, right after conversion. It doesn't make any sense to kosher it before; it won't help. Someone here says if you had your own land and raise your own cattle, you could get a ritual slaughter and have kosher meat, right? Or sell it to others, right? 100%. What about salads? They could have bugs, right? 100%. Even if you went into a vegetarian restaurant, or even if you went into, let's say, a non-kosher restaurant, could a person eat a salad? Could a Jew eat a salad? First of all, you don't know what the silverware was used for. Could it be used for non-kosher meat within 24 hours? That would be a problem. But even if you didn't have that as a problem, right? You have onions. Onions are sharp. So whatever that knife was used for before could bring back the original non-kosher part of it. Even if you didn't have that problem, let's say, what would be the problem? Bugs. Guarantee restaurants are not checking for bugs. Right? They're not going to check like we would check for bugs. They're going to say, we don't have bugs here. We don't eat bugs. Of course they do. Right? Because they don't check. If you don't check, how would you know? Yeah, again, it doesn't mean they're crawling around there, right? We're not going to get gross there, right? We're not talking about they're crawling around there. They're in things. They're dead inside things. They don't check them. Why would they check them? Right? Now, eating a bug is worse than eating pig. Most people are not aware of that. Eating a bug, 5 or 6 prohibitions in one shot. Right? So salads are a problem. So someone will say, well, I'll eat fish. What's the problem? Let's say a person went into a restaurant, they ate fish. They have only a fish restaurant, still got a problem. They got non-kosher fish. Non-kosher fish on the grilled used within 24 hours. How can you put a kosher fish on there? If it's meat, even worse. because the grill absorbs the meat. It's probably used within 24 hours. So you're getting that meat directly on the grill. So how could you say, oh, I'm conservative. I eat fish out. How could you eat fish out? Right? So you say, well, I only went to a fish restaurant. Let's say, if you tell me there's no non-kosher fish there, one thing. But how do you know what the utensils are used for? Maybe they use the utensils, the guy's eating something in the back, he's eating a steak. I don't know, he's eating meat or something, use that knife. Yeah. You're gonna say, well, he washed it off, this and that. Maybe. I mean, for hygiene, hopefully. Right? But you have no idea what the stuff was used for. You're gonna sit there and ask them, you can't trust them. Can't trust them, whatever they say. Right? So, a person will say, well, eating a salad is the safest thing. Eating a salad is probably the worst, one of the worst things. Because the person ate a bug in a salad is worse than eating pigs. 5 or 6 prohibitions, one shot. Somebody asks, okay, boy, guys, keep me on my toes there. Why wouldn't blood in a fish permeate the flesh? Because it doesn't. Blood in a fish, the only time it'd be forbidden to eat blood in a fish, it was all congealed in one place, right? It was a significant amount. But normally we don't say the same thing. It doesn't have the same effect, right? Blood of a fish does not have the same effect because the texture is different. Texture is different, doesn't affect the same way. Is it acceptable to Judaism to buy food from restaurants established dishonest means? Ooh. But sells acceptable food. For example, McDonald's has a clear history of being established in a dishonest way. Okay. Yeah. Acceptable to buy food from a restaurant that established through dishonest means. For a non-Jew, let's say they're not keeping kosher. It's an ethical issue. They had an issue years ago. I don't know if it's true or not, that they had a shortage of meat that McDonald's was selling kangaroo meat. Right? I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it's just a theory. Maybe it's just a conspiracy theory, whatever. But people do things in an unethical way. Yeah, should you derive benefit from it? I don't think so. I don't think it would be an issue. I don't think it'd be an issue that a person really shouldn't do it. Right? It would make sense not to do it because they're doing things in an unscrupulous way. You say, well, they're doing it, you're not doing it, but you're benefiting them. You're 100% benefiting them. Right? So if you're benefiting them, you'll say, okay, let's say, so in that sense, you're benefiting them. You're getting benefit from their unscrupulous acts. Right? So, but you're not doing it. You yourself are not doing it, but you're supporting somebody that does it. Right? So that'd be an issue. That should be an issue. That would be an issue. So the answer is it acceptable to buy food? If they're doing it in an unscrupulous way, you shouldn't. Right? If they're doing it in a way that's bad, then that's, I don't know, doing things, I don't know, it's bad for the environment, or they're lying, misrepresenting other things, yeah, shouldn't buy from them. Right? Other people buy from them, doesn't mean you have to. Right? You want to be more ethical, yeah. But I would say, it goes further than that. I would say, let's say a person enjoys to watch sports, whatever it is, basketball, football, soccer, or football is everywhere else in the world would say, rugby, cricket, this, that. What if the players are immoral? Yeah, what if they do drugs? Let's do other things. Yeah, I have to watch them. Now, what would somebody say? They'll say, what's the problem? I don't care what they do in their private lives. I enjoy the fact they can shoot a ball, or they can hit a ball, or kick a ball, or run after a ball. Yeah, is there anything wrong with it? Now, some of these people, you wouldn't let in your house. You wouldn't trust them for anything. Yeah, just because of what they've done in the past, let's say. Yeah, is that a problem? What would most people say? Most people very simply would say, I don't care what they do in their private lives. I don't care what they do. what they've been accused of, this, that. I want to see them play. That's what most people will say. They don't idolize them per se. They want to see them play. Is that a problem? Should be. How can you support someone that's immoral? Story of a football player, American football player years ago. Probably the prime of his career, or in more or less the prime of his career. Got caught on video, basically sucker punching, his girlfriend, like dragging her into an elevator. That was it. Never played a game after that. Right? It could be a sports announcer, this, that, or whatever. He got finished. Now, let's say they would allow this person to play. You should support him. So what would people say? That, yeah, that's disgusting, this, that. You're right. Is that going to stop anyone from watching them play? I don't think so. Famous commentator today, that sports commentator, once a fan heckled him. He spit on the fan, yeah. Instead of spitting on the fan, he spit on a 4-year-old girl. The guy deserves respect. He deserves respect because he's a basketball analyst and he played when he was younger. Right? People are nothing. Actors, same thing. It's people what they do behind closed doors, and it comes out, let's say, and you find out what this person really does. You say, I don't idolize them. I like the way they act. I like what they do. I like whatever. How can you support it? Most people won't even think of this question. You're asking a different question. I'm just taking it to a different level. Yeah, most people at that point would not even ask that question. They're going to say, what's the difference? What do I care what they do in their private life? I'm happy, the way they shoot a basketball. Yeah, they won my team a championship. What do I care? I want to see him play. I care what he does in his private life. Should. How can you support somebody like that? Wife beater. You want to support him? That makes sense. Logically. But what's the answer? What is the very simple answer? You know what the simple answer is? They don't care. They don't care, but that's immoral. Very good. And what they say and how they act, okay. But nobody cares. Nobody cares. They just want to see them play. Somebody here asked, but the pots and pans we buy now can be kosher. Yeah, they can be kosher. They can be kosher, right? These pots and pans can be kosher. But I would tell you, every time you make something, you have to kosher it. So there's no point to kosher until after conversion. Once a person converts, right, then you clean the pots very well. You let them sit for 24 hours. Then you kosher them. Then you can use it. So now it doesn't matter. It's all for it's all for fun, right? It's all just playing around, right? It's all practice, right? Let's say, right? But again, should be you're not going to kosher until after conversion. Cod is kosher, yes. Cod is kosher. Any fish in general that has scales, which if they have scales, they will have fins, right? There are plenty of fish out there that is kosher. Plenty of fish that's not. Right? There's a question: what happens if a fish sheds its scales when they come out of the water, like swordfish? Swordfish, one of them. Right? We don't need them. Conservative movement says, difference of opinion. We don't eat them. They don't have scales when they come out. King clip fish. Anyone in South Africa has king clip fish. Yeah, the scales you can't see. If you scrape at it, you can see the scales. So that's also a difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities, whether you have to actually see the scales or not. Some say if the scales are there, you just can't see them directly, you can eat it. Right? That means it has scales. Other rabbinic authorities say no, because you can't see them means they're not there. Right? If they're under a microscope, doesn't help. Plastic forks, knives, okay, they're disposable, right? They need to be kosher. No way to kosher plastic. Plastic cannot be kosher. If you got now there's hard plastic. Let's say a person used something, they had a hard plastic fork or spoon. And on that, they got something non-kosher on it. That's it. Throw it away. Can't kosher it. Hard plastic cannot be kosher. What if you got blood on our skin during food preparation? Is that a problem? No. Just wash it off. Wash it off. It's something you ingest. What would happen Person, I don't go, had a bloody tooth and you suck the blood out. Yeah, you swallowed it. If it's inside your mouth, you'd be allowed to swallow it. If it's outside of your mouth, a person had a wound, let's say, and they put their mouth on to stop the bleeding. Let's say, and they end up eating blood. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. If a person, had a cut inside their lip and and they got blood inside, they swallow the blood, that's less of an issue. Much less of an issue because it's already inside your body. It's not considered like it came out, right? If it's something outside the body, you sucked it, let's say, and you ate blood, that's a problem. That's what we're talking about. That's for sure a problem. Right? But you're gonna say, what's the difference if it's just a cut on the inside? Because it's inside your body, it's not outside. It's not outside the body. So again, if it got on the skin, doesn't that's not a problem. You wash it off. That's not an issue. We're talking about if you ate it, right? If you absorbed it in your mouth. Can you eat imitation crab? Now, some people would say no. Some people would say no. Why? Because of what it looks like. But you know what? Imitation crab is fish, right? They had the thing when I was, back in the day, it's not shrimp, right? And it's not. Why not? Even though maybe they dress it up like it is, but it's not. It's fish. Could you eat it? You could eat it. Some people may say can't eat it, but it's not, should be allowed to eat it. Bacon bits, right? You got bacon bits that, taste like bacon. Okay, they put all these chemicals in, probably kill you in the process, but could you eat it? It's not bacon, right? Have rabbinic supervision on it, you could eat it. Yeah, again, it's probably totally not healthy, but, it's not a problem. Some people would say you shouldn't eat it just because of what it is, what it represents. Other people would say it shouldn't be a problem. What about sushi? Not a problem. Just had sushi on Shabbos, right? Now, some people won't eat raw fish for health reasons, but it's not a kashrus issue, right? Raw fish is not a kashrus issue. It comes from a kosher fish, salmon, right? We had sushi with rice, sushi with salmon. Yeah, it's very good if you like raw fish. Some people won't eat it. Some people, again, not because of kashrus issues, because of health issues, right? So that's not a problem. Kashrus wise, not a problem. Tuna. Why should tuna be a problem? Tuna's not a problem. I've seen pictures of like huge tunas. I think of tuna like it's a small fish, but yeah, tuna shouldn't be a problem, right? If you put tuna in sushi, whatever, why not? What should be the issue? Tuna's kosher. Well, I tuna every week, maybe a few times a week. Yeah, tuna's we have abundance of tuna, salmon, other kosher fish. Yeah, not a problem. Definitely not a problem. How would you ever know if they are unethical? If they do things, they get caught. They get caught doing things, right? Again, I don't know if it's true. Back in the day, they said McDonald's used kangaroo meat. I don't know if that's true. Let's say it is. People feel comfortable eating kangaroo meat. I don't know. Kangaroo is kind of, what do you call it? People think kangaroos in a different way. What if they found out, let's say better, it was dog meat or it was cat? Let's say they found, people found out. They exposed them. They found out. Right? So yeah, it's a scandal. That's what happens. Someone found out. Well, let's say it's true. They found out. They found that to be true. How do you find out if they're doing unethical things? They get caught. That's how you find out. Right? There was a kosher, it was kosher Chinese food that was owned by a non-Jew. I don't know how give rabbinic supervision was owned by a non-Jew, but for years it was selling non-kosher meat. There's not a lot of non-kosher meat. Finally got caught. Got caught doing it. But that's when you only find out something's unethical when it gets exposed, when people get caught doing things. That's how you find out. Right? Other times you hear things, you got to verify if it's true or not. Right? But that's the only way you find out. Can you use a gas or charcoal grill be kosher? Oh, if it's charcoal, yeah, charcoal. I would say if you clean it out, if you clean out the bottom, could you blowtorch it? I don't know, you might ruin it. It might ruin it. The thing you grill on, for sure you could kosher, right? The metal grill, that for sure you could kosher. If it was a gas grill, a gas grill would be the same thing. If there's any non-kosher meat in there, so you'd have to burn it out. But the grill itself can be kosher. It definitely can be kosher, right? Same way it's used. You have to, put up as high as it will go, and you have to really clean it well. You have to really clean the grill well. If you clean it well and you burn it out, you could kosher it. Definitely could kosher it. But there are probably, grills out there that probably don't cost too much anyway. So you could buy a new grill anyway. But if you wanted to kosher it, you could. There are ways to kosher it. There are definitely ways to kosher it. But in the meantime, before they get caught, you're eating unkosher food, but you don't know that. Now, we don't assume something's wrong unless you find out it's wrong. When I got married, so an Orthodox rabbi wrote a letter to the chief rabbinate here. They didn't necessarily know who he was, but that he knew 5 generations of my family, known to be Jewish, or 4 generations, 5 generations. Someone said, but what about 6 generations, 7 generations? I don't have to go that far. Once I know there's no issue way back, and they know that my family's Jewish, there's no reason to check. None. I don't have to go looking for problems. But how do you know? Maybe you find out, maybe somewhere down the line, 10 generations, someone had a quasi, conversion or whatever. Why do I have to worry about that? No reason for me to worry about that. Once I know something's not a problem, let's say someone goes to synagogue, they're reading the Torah, they say, I'm a Kohen. Now, if I don't know there's any problem with this person, do I have to scrutinize them and say he's not a Kohen? Why would I have to scrutinize him? He's got a chazaka. He's got believability to say he's a Kohen. Maybe he's lying. Maybe. I don't think so. Most people are not going to say they're a Kohen if they're not a Kohen. They got the right last name, let's say. The name is Katz or the name is, Cohen or whatever. Right? Why would I assume there's a problem unless there's a problem? Then you can say, oh, but maybe you find out later that you end up eating non-kosher. But that's not my problem. You're relying on someone else. Why do I have to assume there's a problem? I don't have to assume there's a problem unless I know there's a problem. Meat drips on the area where the flames come out. You can kosher that. You have to clean it. You have to clean it very well, right? Remember, if it's a gas grill, gas is going to come out straight away, burn it out. Or if you're worried that's not going to work, take a blowtorch. Person can take a blowtorch, right? And blowtorch it. That would probably take you out of the problem also. But again, even if it dripped right in where the gas is, guess what? You clean it out. The gas comes up, it's going to burn it. For sure going to burn it, right? That shouldn't be an issue. You got to clean it well. You got to clean it well. Again, so I said, if it's if the person cleans it well, is it possible to kosher? Yes, it's definitely possible to kosher it. Would it be better not to deal with the headache or whatever? Sure. Then you don't have any issues. You can kosher it. You got to clean it very, very well. But it's possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, I got a gas grill that use a thing that attaches to it, a balloon, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, if I had to kosher it, I'm not gonna say it's so clean. I mean, should clean it better. But it's a job to kosher it. Could it be done? So sure, it could be done. If you clean it well and you burn it out, anything that's there, and anything that's there, if it was non-kosher, you burn it out. That, it'd be like an oven, same thing, right? You clean as best as you can, you burn it out. You got a self-cleaning oven, good. You don't have a self-cleaning oven, you turn it up as high as it'll go. Put matches in the corner to see if it burned it, and that's it, right? You put a caustic cleaner on it, it's finished, right? I wouldn't necessarily do that in a grill, like kill it in the process, right? I have this problem. Some of my, one part of my grill, I still have to get a, what do you call it, like a needle, right? Get a thick enough needle to put it in to, so the gas will come out. So, part of my grill is good. Other parts got gunk in there. You got to clean it out. So, whatever. But again, even if I would do that, let's say, I would do that, and then the gas is fully lit. Even if, God forbid, there was something non-kosher in there, burn it out straight away, right? I don't have anything to worry about. That's better than blowtorch, right? It burns it out straight away. But if you couldn't do that, you get a blowtorch. You can do it. It's possible to do now. If someone would pin me down and say, Should you really do it? Or should you buy a new grill? I tell you to buy a new grill. I just tell you it's better to buy a new grill. It's easier. You have to go through the headache. Give it to someone, give it to an non-Jew, and give it to a relative, whatever. You say, want a grill? Yeah, take it. Right? And, it's just better. It's just easier. It's just easier so you don't have any questions. Right? Someone's going to pin me down. Could you conjure it? Yes. Possible. Definitely possible. Are all people with the last name Cohen a Cohen? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I knew someone, I used to make fun of him all the time. I used to say that, if your last name is Cohen, how are you a Levi? Same tribe. Same tribe. But you could have someone whose name is Cohen that most likely they probably are Cohen. It doesn't mean every single one of them. No, it doesn't mean that. Again, it goes by the father. Obviously, if the mother's not Jewish, then the kid can't be. The kid's not going to be a Cohen. But could someone whose name is Cohen not be a Cohen? It could be. Could be. Yeah, hard to imagine. Usually, if someone's name is Cohen, that most likely means that they're a Cohen. Usually, doesn't have to be. Someone's name is Katz, same thing. Someone's name is Katz, also normal. Normally come from Kohanim. Normally they're Kohanim. Well, it doesn't mean everybody. They're I wouldn't say across the board, but there are family names that are known to be Kohanim. Could a Cohen, again, it's kind of funny. Someone whose last name is Cohen is a Levite. I was saying, what happened to you? Like, how come a Cohen? Who messed up over here? So good again, person could be, it's not foolproof. No, I wouldn't say it's 100% foolproof, but I would say there's a very good chance that the name is Cohen, they're a Cohen, right? Most likely. Give it to see a Cohen? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know him to be a Cohen, but is he? I don't know. Most people are not Kohanim. I would assume he's not. Right? Why would I assume he's not? Because most people aren't Kohanim. Could he be? Could be. Don't know. I don't know. Any other let me see here. Any other questions here? Or any general questions? I guess we're on general questions here. Right. Any other questions? All right, I guess there's no questions. Then I guess I'll continue with this next week. I do this every Sunday, 9:00 Eastern Time, 4:00 Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, Torah portion of the week, which I haven't done in a while, or the Book of Leviticus. Otherwise, if you want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, IBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com.